I hadn't been gone long, a 2-week art residency in Vermont. That was it. Just 14 days of oil paints, silence, and the kind of solitude you can't find in a house where someone is always stomping around muttering about real jobs. And respect. When I left, the house was exactly as I remembered it. Mine. I bought it with the life insurance money after my mother passed. She never got to enjoy it. Cancer took her too quickly. But I made sure the home felt like her. Lavender by the front door, a piano in the den, her teacup collection on open display in the kitchen, even though I hate dusting. I invited my stepfather to live with me because I thought it was the right thing to do. Big mistake. But I didn't know that yet. Not really. I still thought he was just grieving. That maybe he'd calm down, find some peace, learn to coexist in silence. Instead, he grew bitter, like tea left to steep too long. Sharp and dark and unpalatable. The night before I left, he grunted something that sounded like good luck and slammed the fridge so hard a magnet fell off. I ignored him. That had become my main strategy. I thought space would help. That. 2 weeks apart might reset things. But no. When I came back, my key didn't fit the lock. I twisted it once, twice, jiggled it. Nothing. I looked around. Same lawn, same chipped garden gnome, same cracked porch tile. But my key didn't fit. So I did what any normal, confused, recently locked-out homeowner would do. I knocked and waited. Then knocked louder. Eventually, the curtain shifted slightly in the front window. I caught a glimpse of a familiar, sneering face before it disappeared behind the gauzy veil. Then came the voice. His voice. "You don't live here anymore, Rose." No explanation, no apology. Just that. I blinked. "Excuse me." I changed the locks. Thought it was time. "You've been gone long enough. I need my space." His space, my space, our definitions, clearly didn't match. I took a deep breath. My hands shook, but I shoved them into my coat pockets. "I'm on the deed," I said calmly. "The house is in my name." He laughed. Not a normal laugh, more like a dry cough wrapped in smugness. "I talked to a lawyer. Squatter laws. You left for more than 10 days. You abandoned the property." I stared at him. Was this man serious? "You think I abandoned my house by going to a pre-approved 2-week artist program?" He shrugged. "I've been maintaining it, paying utilities, mowing the lawn. I'm a resident. You're not." He shut the window. Just like that. I stood there, in front of my own house, like a burglar caught mid-break-in. Only I was the owner, and the thief was the man inside. To be clear, my stepfather, Richard, never liked that the house was in my name. When Mom passed, I was her only child. Richard wasn't even mentioned in her will. She knew better. Knew he'd squander anything he touched. Still, I offered him a place to live. I told him he could stay as long as he respected the home. What a joke. I walked to my car, gripping my phone like it was a weapon. I didn't cry. I was too angry for that. My mind was already racing. Lawyer, police, locks, cameras, power of attorney, deed. But first I needed a place to sleep. I wasn't about to let that smug Grinch ruin my peace. So I drove to the little motel down the street, the one with questionable carpets and a surprisingly fast Wi-Fi signal. And I sat in bed, drinking gas station wine out of a paper cup, reading every property law article I could find. And that's when it hit me. He thought he won. He thought because he changed a lock. He changed reality. But I was still on the deed. In fact, I was the only one on the deed. That house was legally mine, which meant he wasn't a resident. He was a guest. A guest who just declared war on the landlord. I called my lawyer first thing, the next morning. Janet. Fierce, precise, and with the kind of voice that could cut glass. She'd helped me with the property transfer after my mom died. She didn't even hesitate. "He's delusional," she said. "You own the home. He has no legal claim. He can't kick you out of your own house." "So what do I do?" She paused, then added with a grin I could practically hear. "Whatever you want." I filed a police report for unlawful lock change and unlawful detainer. They told me it would take time. I didn't care. I had time, but I also had something else: patience, and a flair for the dramatic. While the legal gears turned, I made some plans, of my own. Not illegal ones. Just poetic. I booked another night at the motel, then another. And while Richard believed I'd been defeated, I was assembling an army of locksmiths, contractors, tech guys, and one particularly nosy neighbor who loved a good gossip mission. I ordered a new security system, one with facial recognition, and backup. I contacted the utility companies to verify whose name was on the account. Mine. Naturally, I began gathering every receipt, every email, every document that proved Richard was just a guest. And then I waited. Quietly, like a storm just off the coast. One night I drove past the house. No lights on in my bedroom. He'd claimed that room too, apparently. But the kitchen was lit up. I could see the shape of him inside, shirtless, scratching his stomach like some sad sitcom character who'd overstayed his welcome. I smirked. He had no idea the countdown had begun. 5 days later, I had the paperwork I needed. The court date was set. It wasn't even a question of if I'd win. It was just a matter of how long I'd let him stew. And Richard? He kept living there, completely unaware that every step he took inside that house was one step closer to eviction. He thought he was clever. He changed the locks. But he forgot something very important. You can't lock out the owner, and more importantly, you can't lock out a woman who's been holding back her wrath for years. So I smiled, sipped my coffee, and started writing the final act of a story he never saw coming. The day of the hearing arrived faster than I expected. I wore a gray pantsuit, not because I wanted to look intimidating, but because I knew Richard hated gray, said it was a weak color once during an argument about throw pillows. Funny how that stuck with me. I parked across from the courthouse and watched him arrive, in his usual outfit. Jeans 2 sizes too tight, and a jacket he probably stole from a lost and found bin. He didn't see me. He strutted across the parking lot like a man about to win a game he didn't even know how to play. Janet met me on the courthouse steps. She was already grinning. I swear, if I ever get married, I'm walking down the aisle with that woman. She didn't just bring legal documents. She brought receipts. Literally. "Let's get your house back," she said. Inside, we sat across from Richard in the smallest courtroom I've ever seen. He didn't look at me. That was fine. I had nothing to say to a man who drank from my mugs and then called me ungrateful. The judge was a no-nonsense woman with tired eyes and zero patience. My kind of audience. She began with the basics. "Ms. Rose Bennett, you're the sole name on the property deed at 408 Lavender Drive?" "Yes, Your Honor." "And the defendant, Mr. Richard Nolan, is not listed on the deed, mortgage, or any official lease?" Janet spoke up before I could even blink. "Correct. He has never paid rent, signed a lease, or contributed to the mortgage. He was living in the home at the plaintiff's discretion as a guest." The judge turned to Richard. "Mr. Nolan, do you dispute these facts?" He cleared his throat, sat up straight, and delivered what he must have thought was an Oscar-worthy performance. "I maintained the home while she was gone. I paid for groceries. I fixed the sink. I mowed the lawn. She left and didn't say when she was coming back." He smiled like a toddler explaining why the walls were covered in crayon. "So," the judge said, unimpressed, "you felt entitled to change the locks and deny access to the homeowner?" Richard scoffed. "She left. I thought she wasn't coming back. I was protecting my space. Your space." There it was again. Janet slid a stack of documents across the table. Proof of utilities in Ms. Bennett's name. Screenshots of text messages where she told him the exact dates of her artist residency. Receipts of her art program registration. Confirmation that the property is solely hers. The judge flipped through the papers. Slowly. Quietly. Richard squirmed. Then came the best moment of the morning. "Mr. Nolan," the judge said, setting the papers down, "you are being served with a 30-day eviction notice. If you do not vacate the property within that time, law enforcement will intervene." Silence. I didn't gloat. "Okay," I internally gloated. He looked stunned. Pale. Like someone just told him the bar was out of beer. "But I live there." "No," the judge corrected him. "You squatted there. Ms. Bennett allowed you to stay. That generosity does not grant ownership or legal tenancy. 30 days. That's what the court gave him. But I had something else in mind. After the hearing, I walked right past him. No words, no look. Just the sound of my heels echoing down the courthouse hallway like a funeral march. Let him wonder what came next. Because while the law gave him 30 days, I had a plan that would make those 30 days feel like a lifetime. The first thing I did was contact a moving company, not to help Richard pack. Oh no. But to help me retrieve my things. Because yes, I was on the deed. And yes, the court had sided with me. But I wasn't about to wait another month to sleep in my own bed. That night, I returned with 2 officers and my lawyer's letter in hand. Richard answered the door with his usual snarl, shirtless again. Why was he always shirtless? You're trespassing, he said. Nope, I smiled. I'm reclaiming. The officers informed him that I had every right to enter my home and retrieve my property. If he resisted, he'd be the one facing legal trouble. He stepped aside. Barely. Inside, the house was disgusting. He'd rearranged the furniture, threw out my candles, took down my mom's teacups. In their place, a wall-mounted beer opener and a framed photo of a fish he probably didn't even catch. I kept my mouth shut. I walked through each room with a clipboard, noting what was missing. My silverware, a rug from my bedroom, one of my art canvases. He had tried to erase me from my own home. It didn't work. I didn't just make a list. I took pictures, documented every change, every insult in the form of decor. I stayed in a guest room that night. Lock installed, camera above the door. He wasn't happy about that, but legally he couldn't stop me. The next few weeks were theatrical. I brought in a cleaning crew every morning at 8 a.m. sharp. They weren't quiet. Had contractors fix the back fence. Loudly, a landscaper came to replace my garden with new flowers. Peonies this time. Richard hated flowers. Said they attracted bees and women who talk too much. I made sure the gardener wore the brightest floral shirt I could find. I even hired a piano tuner to work on Mom's piano. The man had the gentlest touch and the noisiest tools. Richard lost sleep. I gained peace. Every day was a little reminder that this house didn't belong to him. It never did. I wasn't cruel. I didn't throw out his things. I didn't sabotage him. I just reminded him politely that he had 30 days. Tick. Tock. He started packing on day 18. Slammed cabinets. Broke one of my plates. I documented that too. Day 24, he tried to guilt me. I thought we were family, he said. I raised an eyebrow. You changed the locks, Richard. He looked away. Day 29, he was gone. I came home to an empty house. Quiet. Still. My key worked. I stepped inside, and for the first time in months, I breathed. He left behind a few things. A dusty recliner, a chipped mug, a pile of mail. That wasn't his, but the air felt different. Mine. All mine. I didn't cry. Not for him. But I did light a lavender candle. One of Mom's favorites. And I stood in the doorway, remembering how I used to think kindness meant keeping quiet. Now I knew better. Kindness isn't silence. It's knowing when to reclaim what's yours, and doing it with grace, strategy, and a little bit of sarcasm. I didn't just get my house back. I got me back. And that was just the beginning. It took 3 days for the silence to stop feeling like a warning. 3 days after Richard finally left, the house felt less like a war zone and more like a museum I was slowly restoring. I moved my things back where they belonged. My mother's teacups reclaimed their shelf. The piano was polished. The beer opener was removed with unnecessary force. I left the drywall damage as a reminder. A tiny scar. Proof that something toxic had been removed. But the thing about men like Richard, they don't vanish quietly. It started with the neighbors. Mild curiosity. Harmless questions. So, Richard moved out? Everything okay between you two? I gave polite nods. No one needed the full story. Then the mail started showing up, not addressed to him, but to me. subpoenas, credit collection threats. Apparently, Richard had taken out a credit card and listed my address. Smart? No. Desperate? Absolutely. I didn't panic. I documented everything. Sent each fraudulent piece of mail to Janet, my legal sword. She was already 3 steps ahead of me. She filed a report for identity theft before I finished my morning coffee. We were officially back in battle. But this time, I wasn't just playing defense. You see, the house wasn't the only thing Richard had tried to take from me. He'd done it long before Mom died. Slowly, subtly, undermining me, telling her I was too sensitive, too dramatic, that I wasn't mature enough to handle my own money. That maybe, just maybe, I shouldn't be trusted with big decisions. It was always little things, but little things add up. So I dug deeper, and that's when I found it. While combing through my mother's storage box, I found a letter, an unopened envelope addressed to me, postmarked just weeks before her death. Inside was a handwritten note, her handwriting, curled and soft. Rose, if you're reading this, it means something happened to me. And if Richard is still around, then I need you to know something. She went on to explain that she had added my name alone to the house deed and her bank account on purpose, that she didn't trust Richard with money, that she had changed her will quietly after overhearing him make comments about retirement, plans that involved her life insurance. My breath caught. She knew. Even in her final days, she knew the man she married wasn't right. She protected me. And now, I was going to return the favor. Janet helped me file a civil suit for identity theft and damages. We had the paperwork, the fraudulent charges, and a nice fat binder of Richard's missteps. But I wasn't done. I remembered something Richard had mentioned during one of his late-night rants. He had a dream, a fishing cabin upstate, a place he wanted to retire in. He'd put down a deposit, apparently. Talked the owner into a handshake deal, bragging that he'd have the rest of the money soon. I found the seller, called him myself, and guess whose down payment had bounced? Richard had promised him the rest using inheritance money. Charming. I explained calmly that the man who claimed to be inheriting anything was not only broke, but facing a lawsuit. Then I made an offer. Cash won, because unlike Richard, I actually knew how to manage money. And more importantly, I was feeling petty. 2 weeks later, I owned the cabin. It wasn't even that nice. The roof needed work. The plumbing hissed. But it was mine, and I knew exactly what to do with it. I listed it on Airbnb, under the name Rose. Nolan, pet-friendly, no smoking. Bright pink welcome mat that read, "Not your cabin, Richard." It booked out in 3 days. Poetic justice, served with linens and complimentary Wi-Fi. But the true moment of satisfaction came a month later, when Richard, now living out of his car according to mutual acquaintances, tried to message me on social media. "You took everything from me." I stared at that message for a long time. Then I replied, "No, Richard, you gave everything away. I just kept the receipts." Blocked. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done with anger. Anger's exhausting. I'd traded it in for something far better. Peace and control. Control of my life, my house, my name, my future. I started hosting art workshops in the house, painted over every wall Richard touched. Let women come into the space and reclaim their own stories with color and clay and laughter. I turned the guest room into a studio, hung wind chimes on the porch. Every time they rang, it reminded me that even storms pass. Even locks get replaced. Even men like Richard eventually lose. One day, while tending the lavender in the front garden, a little girl walked past with her mom. She stopped and said, "Your house smells like flowers and cookies." I smiled. Exactly the vibe I wanted. Later that evening, I lit one of Mom's candles and sat at the piano. Played something soft. Something that felt like her. I had spent so long letting people take from me. My silence, my comfort. My space. But not anymore. Richard had changed the locks, but I changed the story. He thought I'd leave quietly. Instead, I stayed, and turned every insult into a blueprint for my comeback. And now I sleep soundly. I work freely. I laugh loudly. Because, in the end, Richard forgot the one detail that mattered most. You can't evict the homeowner.